The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Ilen Mangan of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we get into things, I'd just like to give our listeners a gentle reminder to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose Credit Union, choose local, choose community. Now, our main guest on this week's podcast is the now former Cork Camogie manager, Matthew Twomey, who chats to Kieran about why he chose to step away after a successful season, his delight at the team's victory over Waterford in the All-Ireland final and his time in charge overall. That's coming up later. But first, Kieran, we've said it before a lot of times on the pod that West Cork is in a bit of a golden kind of sporting era. And it means making this podcast can sometimes be, it's a bit difficult sometimes to fit everything and everyone in. And this is another week where we could almost have two episodes of the podcast because there's just so much going on. It's hard to know where to start, but we will head to club football first as the group stage of the championships came to a close with some brilliant games and big results for West Cork teams. And it's probably no other place to start than with the group of death in the Premier Senior Football Championship as Castlehaven and Clonakilty secured their spots in the knockout stages.
Yeah, it was called a group of death for a reason, Dylan, and it lived up to its billing. So going into the final round of action on Sunday, there were two spots up for grabs in the knockout stages, and there were three West Cork teams in competition for those two spots. You had Clonakilty, top of the table, going into the weekend, Castlehaven, then Carby Rangers, and then Valley Rovers. So how it panned out, you Clon and the Haven facing off in Mangan at 4 p.m, and at the same time, you Carby Rangers against Valley Rovers. And the expectation was that Ross would get the job done against Valleys. This is a Valleys team that had lost their first two games and were in a bit of relegation trouble. So there was this expectation Ross will win this game. So there was a lot of eyes in on what would happen on Clon against Haven, because that effectively would be a knockout game then on the presumption that Ross would beat Valleys. But as it turns out, Ross couldn't get the job done. I don't want to say they fluffed their lines, but they just didn't do what they had to do. They had their fate in their own hands. They were in control of their own destiny, but they came up short. They lost 114 to 11 points against a Feaker Lynch-inspired Valleys. And that was a huge result for Valley Rovers because it gets them out of the relegation dogfight that they were in. And it also meant that no matter what happened in the Haven and Clon game, that both teams would go through. As it turns out, it was an epic in Mangan, an absolute epic. Tom Lyons is our reporter there, and he was telling me it was the best match he's seen this year as the two teams went, they slugged it out, a real heavyweight contest here. Jack Cahalane was the pick of the Haven players. Brian Hurley played well, Michael Hurley played well, and Haven came out with a 116 to 114 win, which sees them top the group. But Clonakilty, even though they lost, they lived to fight another day because they progressed to the knockout stages either. And Carby Rangers, who looked primed and poised to take one of those knockout spots before a ball was kicked yesterday, they actually finished up Dylan bottom of the table. So that just shows the tight margins in these county championships right now. So we have Castlehaven marching on to county quarter final against Ballincollig, while Clonakilty have a tough test against reigning county champions Nemo Rangers the weekend after next. So yeah, we've Clon and Haven through, but Ross bow out.
Well, Ross feel like extra disappointed considering they did have that spot in their hands. Like a win would have guaranteed them a knockout spot. So like to kind of be so close and then, like you say, end up at the bottom of the table must be sickening.
It is, yeah. Seamus Hayes was saying afterwards that Ross just never got going on Sunday, and that's very, very much the case. Like in one way, you think they had the hard work done. They drew with Castlehaven on the first day out. They drew in with Clonakilty, so they left them on 2 points. And knowing, like I said earlier, they had their destiny in their own hands. They had to go out and win that game. If they did that, and by a certain margin, they'd have guaranteed their progression anyway. But they just never got going at all, and they'll be bitterly disappointed. This is a Ross team that got to the county quarterfinals last year and gave Nemo a real run for their money. So they had the chance. They had the chance on Sunday to get it done, but they didn't. They didn't, and that's going to make it a long winter in Ross Carbery. I suppose it's Seamus Hayes' first year in charge of this team, and there'll be lessons learned. And I think they'll learn an awful lot from what happened in Timor League on Sunday, because they had an opportunity to get through to the knockout stages, but they just didn't take it. And now we've Clan and Haven advancing to the business end of the competition, albeit they'll both have tough draws there. But you could see these two West Cork teams going further. So good news for Clan and Haven. Not so good news for Carbery Rangers. And if I can jump down to the Senior A for a second, Dylan, there was good news there for some West Cork teams as well, but not for others. I'm going to go to the not so good news first, and that's Ilen Rovers lost to Doheny's 3-13 to 1-15 on Sunday, and that result means that Ilen Rovers are in a relegation playoff against Fermoy, and that game is on Sunday, September 24th, and it's fixed for Brinny, and that's a huge game for Ilen Rovers. It's only 2 years ago that they were relegated from the Premier Senior Championship, and now they're in the Senior A relegation battle, so they have a huge game there because they don't want to slip down again. That'll be 2 relegations in 3 years, so that's a huge game for Ilen. But on the plus point, what we do have, Doheny's are straight through to a county semi-final at Senior A. That win over Ilen was their 3rd win in a row, so that sees them through to a semi-final. And Newcestown also came out of this group. They beat Bishopstown in a winner-take-all game that finished 119 to 210, so quite a resounding win for Newcestown. And it's just busy times for Newcestown hurlers and footballers, both through to their respective Senior A quarterfinals, both picking off a lot of the same players. The Newcestown hurlers are out this weekend. The Newcestown footballers are going to be out in a county quarterfinal the weekend after, when they take on Kanturk. So it's pretty busy times for them. And I have to have a word about O'Donovan Ross as well. Jesus, yeah. How close did they come? My God. So they won the war in Bandon on Sunday when they beat Fermoy. They beat Fermoy. I'm looking at the score here. It was 310 to 113. So got the job done there, but they lost the battle because they were knocked out of the championship on points scored. So what we saw here was 3 teams on 4 points in this group: Knocknagree, Kanturk, and O'Donovan Rossa. And Kanturk and O'Donovan Rossa finished on the same points, the same point difference, +4. And then it came down to points scored, and Kanturk had the edge there, 59 against 54. So it meant if Skib scored 1 more point against Fermoy, if they'd won that game by an extra point, that would have been enough to see them through. So talk about fine margins. They did everything they could, and they just get knocked out on such a tight margin like that. But that is the way this championship is set up, and it shows how competitive it is. And we've always said, Dylan, that the Senior A football championship, well, I think is the most competitive of the whole lot, and we certainly saw it there in Skib's group this season.
Yeah, and just looking at the table as well, like it's a kind of an extra sickener for O'Donovan Rossa that, like, so the points difference there, they were both on +4. Knocknagree finished top of the table on +5. So even if they had scored 1 point less or conceded 1 point more, O'Donovan Rossa would have gone through because they scored a good 9 points extra than Knocknagree. So those fine margins, like you say, being so competitive, like it's one of those things, like they must be kind of looking back at games thinking just that one chance, if the wind wasn't blowing that direction, or if it just, my boot connected with it a little bit better, we'd be through. So it's a complete sickener for him.
100%. And they were missing Donald Hodnett as well. I think he'd have been ruled out for the rest of the championship if they progressed. he picked up an injury in their last game, and Doheny is a huge loss. He's been like a talisman of this Skibbereen team for years, and a real driving force, and he's always a fella with a couple of points in him as well. It's not to say that he would have got the scores against Fermoy and Bandon on Sunday, but he would have been certainly an extra option for Skip to use. And like you said, it is a sickener, like to bow out on such a fine margin, like 1 point over 3 games, as in 1 point scored, like that's as tight as it gets. And like Skip are looking to kick on, like they've got to the knockout stages in the last couple of years. They got the county semi-final last year and they beat Doheny in the quarter-final. And now it's Doheny in a semi-final this year, while Skip didn't even get out of the group. But that's, like I said, it just shows how competitive that Senior A football grade is. And what's also quite competitive is the grade just below it, that Premier Intermediate Football Championship as well. And what we've seen there too, Dylan, is a couple of West Cork teams progressing to the knockout stages. So one of the, I'm not going to call them surprise packets, but they've kind of gone under the radar a small bit. But Castletown Bear topped their group and they're now directly through to a county semi-final. They had their latest win the weekend. They beat Bandon 15 points to 11. So that sees the Bearer club go directly to the last 4. And that's super for them. I think it's the first time in 8 years that they're going to be in a county intermediate quarterfinal. So they'll be delighted. Bantry Blues had the opportunity to get that semi-final spot, but they were held to a draw against Macroom on Saturday. And it still means Bantry progressed to the next stage. I'm just looking here to see who they're playing. You're going to have Bantry Blues against Nemo Rangers in that quarterfinal. That's on Sunday, September 24th in Iskeen. So Bantry will still fancy their chances of getting back into the semi-final. The same Bantry team were finalists last year. They were missing Rory Dean for their game the weekend just gone. So hopefully he'll be back fit. And the other quarterfinal will be a cracker, Kilmarcher against Ivlera. That's in Macroom on Friday, September 22nd. As well. So there's a lot of West Cork interest there too. So in that Premier Intermediate football grade. And if we're dropping down another grade for a second, we're going to look at bear with me here for a second as my internet tries to catch up with me. The Intermediate A Football Championship, and there was heartbreak again for Gabriel Rangers, who missed out the knockout stages for the second year in a row. They lost to Ahabulloch the weekend just gone, so they finished third in their group. But the good news there is Adrigole are through to a quarterfinal of the County Intermediate A Championship. Adrigole got the better of Glenville last weekend. They beat them 119 to 1-7, and that sends Adrigole through to a county quarterfinal against St. Vincent's. And Adrigole fans, they need to mark Saturday, September 23rd in their calendar. That game is going to be on in Inchigeela at 5 p.m. So we've Adrigole in a county quarterfinal. So as you can see there, Dylan, there's a lot of West Cork teams from Carbery and Beara in the business in the county championship. And this is where it gets serious. It's knockout from here on. So we're going to have a pretty busy few weeks on the Star Sport podcast.
Absolutely. And just before I move on, I know it's kind of a disappointing year for some teams, but I think overall, if you're thinking of West Cork clubs in general, like it's been quite a positive year so far for them, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Like I said, there's a fair chunk through to the knockout stages, and I'm looking at Castlehaven for a second. I fancy them to get past Ballincollig, even though that'll be quite tough. Ballincollig had a great win against Éire Óg, and if Haven get past that, they'll be playing the Bars for the 4th year in a row to semi-final stage, which is incredible. And then you've Clon on the other side. Doheny are going quite well in the Senior A. Bantry Blues and Castletown Bear are going well in Premier Intermediate. You also have Newcestown, always capable of a shock as well in Senior A. So and Adrigole down in Intermediate A as well. And a word too for Orhan. Jesus, I'd be killed out in Bear if I didn't mention our friends in Orhan. In the new Premier Junior Football Championship, Orhan are flying the West Cork flag high. They qualified as top of their group in Group A, and I think they're through direct to the county. Is it county quarterfinal or semi-final? It could be. It's a county quarterfinal, and they're going to be in action as well on that very busy weekend. The weekend after next, they'll take on Mill Street in Cahill on that Saturday. So you've Orhan going well too, and the advent of that Premier Junior Football Championship was great news for Orhan. We all know that Orhan were the only kind of Junior A side as it was in Beara, so they had no competition. So they used to go into the county series with just a couple of challenge games under their belt, and that's a huge ask then, because they were coming up against teams who've come through their own divisional championships. But now Orhan are getting meaningful championship games in that group format, and they're flourishing, and they're through to the knockout stages. So that's another group story, another great story. So like you said, Dylan, lots of plus points for West Cork teams.
Absolutely. Orhan are flying, and another group of West Cork athletes that were flying the West Cork flag on the international stage in the past week were the rowers, and it was a brilliant end to the World Rowing Championships in Belgrade in Serbia. We have 2 boats qualified for the 2024 Paris Olympics and a haul of medals to bring home as well.
Oh, it's brilliant, and like you mentioned there, and it's quite important that it's the boats that qualify. So just for our listeners, even though Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy were in the boat that qualified for the Olympics, they're not guaranteed their place until that final selection is made closer to the Olympics in Paris next year. But as of now, you could take it, just a touch wood, barring something unfortunate, that you will have Paul and Fintan in that boat. So it is the boat that qualifies, and then the crew is confirmed later to the time. So the good news is there's another world gold medal winging its way back to Skibbereen, probably as we speak, because Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy confirmed their dominance of the lightweight men's double. Another emphatic performance in the Worlds. They won their heat, their quarterfinal, their semi-final, and their final to win their 3rd gold medal together in terms of world gold medals. That's 2019, 2022, and 2023. Add that to their Olympic gold from Tokyo, and it shows just why these two are the best in the business right now. At the last World Cup, Dylan, there was that shock defeat for Paul and Fintan. They lost the A final there by 0.09 of a second. But like we said in this podcast before, context is hugely important there, because the lads just didn't have the time in the boat together. But they had that time together before the Worlds in Belgrade, and they showed us all that they are without doubt that best pairing in the world. So that's great. World gold Olympic qualification for Paul and Fintan in the men's lightweight double. Then we have a Skibbereen rower, Aoife Casey, in the women's lightweight double, and herself and Mags Crimmin teamed up again. That's becoming the very familiar partnership there. They missed out on their place in the A final, which would have guaranteed them Olympic qualification. So on Saturday morning, Aoife and Mags lined up in the B final, and there was a lot of pressure attached here because there was one qualification place left. There was one place left up for grabs. So they knew they had to win the B final, and two mighty women, they delivered. And what an epic race it was. But Aoife and Mags took that last qualification spot on offer. So they've qualified their boat for the Olympics next year. So it's looking good already. We're 11 months out from the Olympics, but the West Cork involvement, we can start ticking names off the list now, because it looks like we'll have a fair representation over there. But this was just great for the Skibbereen rowers, but great too for Rowing Ireland in general. 7 crews qualified their boats for next year's Olympics. That's incredible. 7 crews are know that they'll be going to the Olympics next year, and we also won 4 medals as well. So Irish rowing is on the crest of a wave at the moment, and it's been spearheaded by 2 Skibmen, 2 fellas from the same parish of Affadown, in Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy.
Yeah, the countdown, it kind of feels like the countdown can really start now that we know, obviously, like we've said, it's the boats that qualify, but I wouldn't be putting money against Paul and Fintan being in that boat next summer. So it kind of feels like the excitement can start to build now that we know for sure that the boat will be in the water next year.
100%, because let's say that something happened at the World Championships just gone and those boats didn't qualify. There is another final qualification regatta in Lucerne. I think it's next May. It's like the last chance saloon to qualify for the Olympics. And if you go back to 2021, that's where Aoife and Mags qualified with the Irish women's lightweight double. So they just took one of those last places on offer. But now we're, like I said, 11 months out from the games. The 2 lightweight crews know that they're already through to the Paris Olympics next year. So that will allow them to plan accordingly. They don't have to go through that final Olympic qualification regatta, so they can turn their focus to their preparations for the games next year. And that's just good news for them, because they'll have a huge winter training block, but then all the focus will be on Paris next summer.
Absolutely. And moving on now, we've spoken about him a lot in recent weeks, Kieran, but Jack Crowley made his World Cup debut at the weekend. He came on in Ireland's comprehensive victory over Romania. And while they may not have been the highest calibre of opponents, Kieran, Jack came on, he looked cool, he looked confident in that number 10 role as well. And it kind of bodes well, I think, not only for Jack, but for Ireland going into the coming weeks.
Yeah, huge moment for Jack Crowley making his World Cup debut. Huge moment for West Cork Rugby too. He's the first local man we've ever had to play in a men's rugby World Cup. So it's just we had Dan Murphy from Bandon Rugby Club on this podcast a few weeks ago, and he was saying that Jack's rise to this level, that it's a salute to the work of all West Cork rugby clubs and the whole community of West Cork rugby, and that's why everyone in West Cork can be so proud of what Jack Crowley is doing, because he's a local man whose skill and talent was honed and developed here in West Cork through Bandon Rugby Club, through Bandon Grammar, and now look at him coming on in a Rugby World Cup game. He nailed his 4 conversion attempts with a 100% record there, and there were some tricky kicks in there as well. So Jack replaced Johnny Sexton after 66 minutes, and like you said, Dylan, he looked right at home at that stage, granted against a Romania team that was probably crying to hear that final just to get off the pitch at the end, because Ireland just ran right towards the end. But as debuts go, it all went according to plan for Jack. And I think what we saw from the fact that Jack was named as one of the replacements, that he is the number 2 to Johnny Sexton. I think we'll get a better idea now with the Tonga game this Saturday, if it is whatever Andy Farrell decides to do, whether it's rest Johnny Sexton and start Crowley, or we could see Ross Byrne come into the mix as well. But I think it's just a good sign for Jack Crowley that he was picked on the bench the last day, that he did come on. And I was listening to Andy Farrell before the game against Romania, where he was talking about why he picked Jack Crowley. And like he said, that he can cover a lot of different positions off the bench. So that versatility could serve Jack well in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Jack was said after us on an interview that half of West Cork was over in Bordeaux last weekend to watch him in action. And I know his parents, Fact and Maria, were over there. And obviously a lot more from in and around Inishan and Bandon and even the wider West Cork area. So a great weekend for Jack Crowley, but hopefully it's the start of something. Hopefully we'll have another couple of months of West Cork rugby to chat about on the podcast.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And just as well, I thought the fact that he came on and nailed every single one of his kicks was such a, a couple of the conversions he had were difficult angles from difficult distances, and they all sailed over. I think he scored every single one. So that's another thing to kind of add to another string to his bow, to be able to say to Andy Farrell, look, I'm consistent, you can trust me. If it comes to the stage where in a big game you need somebody to come on, you know that I'll be able to kick those points as well, which in rugby, especially in the World Cup, it's those 2 points, those 3 points that make the difference as well.
100%, because he did everything that he had to do on Saturday against Romania. Like, he passed his audition with flying colours, and there's that much more that he can do in terms of trying to win his place in the match day squad for the game against Tonga on Saturday night. We'll see towards the end of this week whether he starts, whether he's a replacement, or whether Ross Byrne comes in. We just don't know, because Andy Farrell has those choices. But Jack didn't put a foot wrong on Saturday night, so he's put himself in a good position going into the next few games.
Absolutely. We're going to take a very quick break now, but we'll be back in a moment to hear from the former Cork Camogie manager, Matthew Twomey.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. And Kieran, now it's time to hear from the former Cork manager, Matthew Twomey. You caught up with him following his decision to step away from the management panel for the coming year. And you had a great chat about his time in charge overall, that victory against Waterford, of course, in the All-Ireland final, and why he chose to step away as well.
Yeah, the news broke last week that Matthew Twomey has decided not to go forward for another term as Cork senior Camogie manager. So very much like Eric Cantona back in the day, he's leaving with his collar turned up and leaving on a high, and he's leaving Cork as the number 1 Camogie team in the country, back as All-Ireland champions. He masterminded Cork's first O'Duffy Cup win since 2018. So what a great place to bow out with Cork in that position, and with quite a strong squad as well. And this Cork team looks primed to hopefully kick on now that they have the monkey off the back, that they've won the All-Ireland after a couple of tough years losing in major finals. But as we'll hear from Matthew now, his plan was always to leave after 2 years. Whether Cork won this year or didn't win, that was his plan. Between work and family, being an intercounty manager is a huge commitment. So he was always going to sail off into the sunset after this season. And the great thing is he can sail off into the sunset with his arm around the old Duffy Cup for company, and safe in the knowledge that he has restored Cork to the top of the chart. So great to catch up with Matthew. But before we hear from him, just to say thanks to Matthew, because he has been so accessible and so great for the media over the last couple of years. And people on the outside looking in probably they wouldn't see this side of it. But Matthew made life for us so much easier in terms of access to him, access to players, and so on. And it's very much appreciated on our end. So just a quick thank you to Matthew, to wish him all the best in his his new challenge, whatever that will be. And as you'll hear from him now, he explains to us first why he decided that the time was right to step away as Cork boss. First question, so Matthew, what's the reason behind you deciding now is the time to step away from this role?
Look, it's a very easy reason. Is when I got offered a job, I keep saying it was never on my radar. So I had to go to a lot of people. Like, obviously we've the business here. Like, I had to talk to the lads, and more importantly at home, I had to talk to Maria and the kids, I suppose, to a small extent. But I know the sacrifices I'd have to make, and but that's all fair enough. That's what I'm good, because we know that. Like, but it's the sacrifices everyone else around us have to make as well. So look, they afforded me the time to do it for 2 years, and that was always the plan. Like, there was like I heard only this week there was a I could have stayed on a third year. I didn't even know that. But look, the 2 years was the deal I made with everybody, and to be fair to all them, that was going to be the case. Look, I spoke to the management, the players kind of knew it as well, I suppose, before the year was out as well. But all the management knew it this year as well, the whole year. Even when I got them involved, I said, look, I've 1 year left in this, and this is the plan. So that's the way it was. Like, and a sporting side of things, it's a very hard decision, but on a personal side of things, it's kind of an easy enough decision, to be fair to everyone at home.
Regardless of how this year would have panned out, so you'd already decided, like, you knew yourself, this is going to be your final season in charge.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, and the worry was, I suppose, is if we got the four national finals and lost the four of them, my head was on the block. Look, luckily we won the last one, but I suppose you can't be disappointed after winning an All-Ireland. Like, but we left others behind us as well. But look, that's all a learning curve. But look, my time there has been unbelievable. I really enjoyed it, and I got a lot of respect from all the players and from people, the media, like yourselves and all that. I got fierce respect off people, and I showed them respect as well. But it was a massive education. But yeah, that's the end of that then.
You mentioned the word earlier, Matthew, the word sacrifices, and it's also the outside looking in. We don't see the amount of work that goes into an inter-county team. Like, it's incredible the work that the whole management team does, including yourself. Like you mentioned there, your family and your work. But can you just give us like even a peek behind the curtains for a second? What does it look like, all that background work? We see the match on the Saturday or the Sunday, but let's say during the week itself, like, how much is involved in an inter-county job now?
It kind of goes, it's, I suppose there's all sorts of different facets to it. Like, obviously you're dealing, like, there's 12 in the management, so like you're dealing with all them. Like, we'll be discussing what's going on for the week, etc. Like, we saw, the sports psychologist, she would be on to me if there was someone in trouble. The physio would have been on if there was a player, and like Wesley would have been on. If there's extra training sessions, and that's just the management. Then the players would be on if they had problems or issues, or just wanted to have a chat. Like, that's what you're there for. But then I suppose there's a lot of avoidable stuff, like, we said with the clashes, like, that was insane. Like, the amount of phone calls there at night time and during the day as well, it was off the charts kind of stuff. Like, so look, I suppose they're trying to factor in. I suppose you're looking at definitely minimum 30, possibly 40 hours a week on top of the training. Like, it's look, when you're in it, it's part of you know, like it's part of everyday life. You know, the phone calls don't stop. You know, everything that's the way it is. And there's probably some sense, yes, statistically, you don't want them to stop either when the year's going on, because you just want to be in the camogie, in the county set up in your head all the time. It takes its toll. You know, there's sometimes there's, you know, ferociously stressful. But I'd like to be fair. I probably brought a lot on myself then as well, because I'd be fair conscious about making sure everyone was all right and that kind of jazz. Like.
So now you're going to have a lot of extra time on your hands come this winter and going into next year, because it's important too to point out you're involved with Paddy Murray's management team before that, so you've had a fairly long stint involved with the Cork Senior Camogie team.
Yeah, look, fairness to Paddy, like Paddy was a huge impact to me with everything with Cork Camogie. Paddy got me involved as a coach. I was after training the senior hurlers in Douglas for 2 or 3 years, I think. And November 2013, he rang me to meet him, and I went down and met him. Like, it's like the famous saying, like he had me a hello, like, you know, when you know, it was the Cork senior team dealing with the Breeches, Rena, Jim O'Connor, Annie Geary, the whole lot of them. It was a very easy decision. So I went in as coach, and we won the All-Ireland that year in 2014, and I was kind of half involved 15, 16. I was an assistant manager, I think, and I took a sabbatical then for a few years, and then back in 21 with him, in the background again. And then, as I said, in the manager 22, 23. Like, so it's you know, I owe Cork Camogie an awful lot. Like, you know, I suppose the first time I was on the sideline in Croke Park was in 2014 as a coach, and you're winning an All-Ireland. Like, it was like, I don't think that would ever be repeated. Like, you know, obviously the final this year was special, but 2014 to me was always the pinnacle. Like, it was just incredible. Like, you know, a gobshite from Douglas, like, and ending up in Croke Park, like, on the sideline winning an All-Ireland, like, was unreal.
You've bookended your Cork coach and management career with All-Irelands, like you said, 2014, and just the All-Ireland one recently as well. And that was an incredible moment for yourself and this Cork team. So it was a fierce sense of pride. Like, you're exiting stage left, but you've left Cork in the best possible position. All-Ireland champions, very strong squad there, potential to kick on again. So Cork Camogie right now is in a good place, Matthew.
It is, like, and you know, like, it just came good now for us at the end. Like, there's an awful lot of hard work, like, because, look, I suppose we inherited the panel from Paddy's tenure. We chopped and changed a small bit. And this year, look, obviously, there's kind of some of the young ones, you know, you have to give credit to all the underage coaches and management teams. 16 minors, like, they've talent coming through every year. It's just hard trying to pick the right ones, and you know, you're not leaving down anyone, or you know, so that's a chance. The reason why the panel is so good, it was by chance because of all the injuries we had this year. So, like, it can't be something that we can say that, look, we did something magnificent. We didn't. It was just the way the cards fell for us this year. We had no choice. The Orla Cronin, Ashling Thompson, Laura Hayes, and even Katrina Matthew was missing, I think it was 12 or 15 weeks or something like that. You know, all these things took an impact on us, but you know, though we had the losses, we still, you know, we got a lot of players inside there, I think, who excelled. You know, the likes of Izzy O'Regan, we couldn't even feed 6 backs. Izzy O'Regan's a wing forward, and we had to put Izzy wing back, and you know, she won in Ireland playing wing back with her, and you know, it's insane stuff, like, but it's just, as I say, it's just the way the cards fell for us. It was like, there was nothing of this was anything genius by us. It was just, you know, circumstances.
How special was that day against Waterford up in Croke Park? We had Saoirse McCarthy and Fiona Keating on the podcast just a couple of days after, and they were definitely enjoying the celebrations. But Saoirse made a point that she was on the sideline towards the end. She was taken off, and she got to enjoy those last couple of minutes, knowing that Cork are going to win the All-Ireland. You know, what was it like for you on the sideline with just minutes to go, knowing that you had such a lead, and knowing that the O'Duffy Cup was coming back to lead side?
Yeah, it was fairly special, I suppose, when Amy did her cameo in the start of the second half. There was an element of you saying, "Geez, I think we have this one." Like, even though we were, you know, 5 goals up, I think at the time, you still didn't want to believe it. When Fiona's goal went in, then they said, "Look, we can't be dragged back at this stage now." So you have to soak it in a bit. It's amazing, really. Like, and you know, you're looking around the people, and you know, you're able to kind of, you know, obviously we got everyone as much as we could and off the bench, but you're looking at people's faces, the reactions, like, you know, even some of the players there that was the first All-Ireland. So I was kind of keeping an eye out for them just to see their reaction that you know, they got to the Holy Grail. It's a really special time. You know, there's an edge of sympathy for Waterford. Everything went wrong for them, and to be fair, I don't often say it, but like I think we could have been playing anyone there on August the 6th. I think the way we were coming into the game after the 2 massive wins, I don't think anyone would have stopped us that day. I was scaredly confident. I was actually worried, because I'd be always kind of the pint is half full when it comes to teams like that. I never want to put myself in the position that I can fall, but I couldn't see us the whole week. I couldn't see us being beaten. It was just the way you could see the players were on talking to them. It was a great feeling, like, yeah.
And would you have experienced a moment like that with this group of players? Like you said, the quarterfinal beat Kilkenny, semi-final beat Galway, then beat Waterford in the final, and then you reach the highs to highs. How do you break the news to them then, saying, thanks for everything, but my time, I'm just stepping away now? Like, is that a hard conversation, or do you have that conversation, or how do you break the news to the players?
Yeah, it is a hard conversation. I don't know who said it during the week. It's like being back when you're 19 or 20, breaking up with a girlfriend. It's not you, it's me, kind of thing. Like, you know, this is it is hard. But look, I suppose there's a good few of them had a good idea before the season ever finished up. I don't think it came as any major surprise when we came down the train on Monday. Someone said it to me, and I said, look, nothing changes. I said, look, I know this the feeling of the winning of the All-Ireland camouflages things, but I'm after making a decision on this. It was tough, look, but the response of the players during the week has been, you know, I kind of shut up from some of this stuff, like, but it's been very nice. You know, the words they've said to me, like, and all that, it's special, because look, they're the people that you're dealing with week in, week out, and like, you know, some of the girls haven't got runs with us this year, and they're still very appreciative of all the stuff that the management have done, and you know that's special. That, you know, when you create an environment like that, you know, like, but as you said a while ago, we're just hoping someone comes in and keeps it going, and you know, the success is there. There's no question about it, like, to follow.
Like, you've left Cork Camogie in an incredible place right now, like I said, as All-Ireland champions, but you also mentioned there the 4, I suppose, major final defeats as well over the last couple of years. And in these years, there must have been a couple of low moments, Matthew. How do you as a manager then just keep everything pointing forward, keep the girls' belief up, keep everyone kind of instill that knowledge and confidence that we are going to get there someday, like we have the talent in the panel? Like, how do you work through those low moments to reach the top of the mountain?
I'll be honest with you, it was extremely hard there. Like, the All-Ireland defeat last year was very disappointing, and I suppose what I found, look, you know, the lads came in last year, Davy and the lads came in, and we always knew it was but for 1 year, and Brian Sull and Cleena Sargent, you know, they stepped away, and probably huge loss for me was Niall Collins. He was even massive loss to us, and like, it just, I wouldn't say it scared me, but like, it's so hard to get a group of people together that can work together, and you know, like, it's important as well that we all get on, because that zooms into the players. So that was a fairly scary time. I couldn't say it was anything genius. We just got very lucky with the people we got involved this year. They were exceptional people, like, and we all clicked, which was great. Like, that was scary, that was tough going. But like, the defeats this year, I suppose the killer was the league final. I think we dominated the game totally, and we just couldn't score. There was a lot of things coming up in training that we were kind of saying we could see the potential being there, but we just couldn't get it. Again, obviously we were short of a good few players, but it was the defeat against Waterford down Park Kiev. That was extremely tough. We had to go upstairs, because obviously the hurlers were playing after us, and we had to go upstairs for food, and there was a few comments made to us as we were walking from one end of the stand to the next, and that's hard to swallow, you know. And these people then beyond, you know, you're the best in the world now, but you don't forget things like that either. It was just, you know, that's life, that's sport. It was tough going, but we had a meeting after that Waterford game, and it was fairly frank words spoken, and you know, we just had a deep look at ourselves, but we just, like, I know, look, I suppose the chairperson of the Camogie, Murray Donovan, rang me on that night and said where we're going, and for some reason, I don't know why, I just said to her on the phone, I said, it was April the 30th, I can still remember, and I just said, well, I can guarantee we will in Ireland, and she kind of, I wouldn't say laughed at me, you know, to be fair to her, but she was kind of saying after that performance, I don't know, and I said, I think this could be the making of us, and that's the kind of, like, are you bluffing yourself or whatever it is, I don't know, but you have to keep that to the players, that they're making so much commitment, so much time into it, you have to have that environment for them, and even the Galway game afterwards, we lost in that, and I was even more convinced. And as Liam Cronin, the coach, said the whole time, is just we need to beat is what Galway wants, and luckily he was right. So as I say, there was times very, very hard, and there was fairly negative talk about us, but we stuck together, and that's genuine. We stuck together no matter how hard it went.
And what was it about this group that you had that belief, even in those dark moments in the mid-season?
We had a system. Like obviously last year we had a different system, but that was very effective in its own way, and we kind of used that system last year and tweaked it this year. Just that we kind of knew that what the attributes of the players were. It was the main thing we had is our conversion rate was poor, but the chances we were making were off the charts. Like we were watching it, and we went through it over and over on video analysis, and we were just saying one of these days someone's going to get hammering off us, because the chances we were creating, we got 319 against Down, 319 against Galway, 215 against Kilkenny, 15 I think is Galway, and then 519 or 13 whatever it was against Waterford. It's just we could see it coming, but we needed everyone to be there to get it done as well.
It certainly all came together on All-Ireland final day. But before I let you go, Matthew, I have to ask you about the dual player issue. It's been a huge part of your story in terms of the Cork management over the last couple of years, because it's just been an ever-present issue for dual players, the Cork ladies footballers and the Camogie players. What do you think is going to happen here? Like it's season after season, there is no change. It happened more than ever this season. I think we had three dual clashes. What do you think is going to happen here? Like, are players going to have to end up choosing one over the other, or do you think the associations can come together to make this work, or where do we go from here?
Like, I suppose, like if you look at Hannah Looney, the semi-final, her second half of the performance for us in the semi-final was off the charts, and in the final 18 possessions, but she missed 4 weeks of Camogie. It's testament to her, the way she came back. But some players can't get away with that. Like Orla Callan was probably our most seasoned campaigner in the league. She was our star forward in the league. She got injured, and then again she missed 4 weeks in the Camogie, and she couldn't get back into the starting 15. It's ridiculous. It's such an easy, like, even in the years I was involved with Paddy, like the Saturday was Camogie, the Sunday was football, and then all of a sudden this year they changed everything to the Saturday, so they forced your clashes. Like, it's just like, they want to come under the one umbrella and all this kind of stuff. Like, if they can't talk to each other, you're wasting your time. Like, they're like, if I was advising anyone, if someone was coming out of minor, like, and we've a lot of fair talented girls coming out of minor now as well, I'd be nearly saying to them, pick one. And it might be detrimental to the Camogie, but I would say to them, nearly pick one, because the way it is, it's crazy. Like, it's as I say, it's a simple fix. Even like the players are happy enough to sacrifice to go Saturday and Sunday playing 2 matches in a row. But the associations don't afford to that. And as I say, I think this year, to be fair to the Camogie, we were always Saturdays. It was just the ladies' football changed into the Saturdays this year, like, and it's pushing the players out of it. Like, there's no question about it.
And it's putting so much pressure on those players, because in a week leading up to game, they don't want to be sitting there thinking, Christ, have I to pick Camogie or football here, because their teammates and friends are both. So it's putting the players in such an awkward position as well.
It is, yeah. But in fairness to Shannon, we had a great relationship this year. Fair play to him. Like, he was very easy to deal with. We had a situation with, like, we picked the players and we told them what they were doing, and that was tough on them at times, because they thought for us picking 2, that we didn't want the other 2. It was like that. But there was one instance, and I'm sure Shane can back me up in this. Orla Callan had a supposed injury that she was going to be missing, so we were going to a duel. It was a clear game, I think, and we'd only 3 players, so we kind of said, look, I want X, he wanted Y, and we were going to toss for the third, because Orla Callan wasn't available, so we were going to toss for the third. Like, and both were very, very high pressure games for the 2 of us. Like, and you're looking at tossing for a player, like, and that's ridiculous. Like, but luckily, I suppose you want to call it, Orla was okay. So we were able to go 2-2 then at that stage. Like, but I suppose the pressure point, like what you were saying a while ago, the pressure point for me was we were going to the Down game, and I was like, on paper, Cork would be Down in Camogie, no issue. I was extremely nervous, because we had 2, like we again, as I say, we had our injuries, but we 2 of our players weren't playing football. We had 2. going into the Clare game, same situation. 2 players were playing football, 2 were playing camogie, but people wouldn't see that if we got beaten. It was on my head or the management's head. Like, they haven't a clue what they're doing. They're useless. They're a team that, But all these circumstances were going against us. As I say, it's absolutely totally avoidable. But that's the way it is. Like.
Final question. So, what are you going to miss most about being the Cork senior camogie manager?
The time with the players and the management. Those Tuesday and Thursday nights and the crack matches, without doubt, like they've been unbelievable. I was lucky. We all had a great relationship with each other. Like, there was fierce crack. There was no one safe at the slagging. Like, and that side of things, definitely. The training and the matches and all that's the hardest part in this. Even the thought, like if I was guaranteed to go again for another chance of it, that we might have a cut off the All Ireland, I still say just being involved with these people was amazing. Man.
Oh, great stuff, Matthew. Congratulations again on your 2 years in charge and your All Ireland win. And thank you so much for everything too. You've been super to deal with over the last couple of years. I wanted to wish you the best in your spare time coming up. No doubt you'll find something to fill it quite fast.
Yeah, and come here, thanks very much for all your support as well. You've been brilliant to the game as well, in fairness to you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Matthew.
Thanks, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back again to the Star Sport podcast. And Kieran, I don't think there's ever been a more packed Southern Star Sport, has there?
No, you can see me going grey before your eyes, Dylan, as we're recording this podcast, because I'm still trying to figure out how the hell we're going to get it all into this week's sports section. But that's the challenge ahead of me over the next couple of days. But like you said, yeah, it's going to be packed, because off the back of those huge county championship football weekend, also it was a massive weekend in the Carbery Junior A football championship, where the teams involved in the knockout stages were confirmed, and we've coverage from those games as well. There was also the Ladies Senior Football Championship. We had the Mid-Cork is still going on. We also have previews of the huge hurling games this weekend. Kilbrittain are in action, Newcestown are in action, Bandon are in action as well. And that's not taking into account all the other different sports. So it really is a packed Southern Star Sports section on wigging your way on Thursday. We're recording this on Monday afternoon, so I probably won't sleep till Wednesday night going by the list I have in front of me now, Dylan, but it'll be all worth it when our Star readers wake up on Thursday morning to get their weekly treat of the Southern Star Sports section. So this week's sport, it's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, and elsewhere as well, we have a West Cork farming magazine. The ever popular West Cork farming magazine will be in this week's Southern Star, along with the second part of our first day at school photo special. So this really is a great week for West Cork readers, alongside in the paper as well, all the great reporting that goes on in there. So you're getting great bang for your buck. And if you're not in West Cork or you can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe to the Southern Star. Get the Southern Star e-paper on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just head to subscribe.southernstar.ie, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week, alongside full access to every single article on our website as well. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Thanks for listening.